It's garlic planting season already. Can you believe it? So it's autumn here in my garden. It's mid-October and that's time for me to get planting. So I've got my handy dandy journal to give you my 5 tips to make sure that you get the best, the biggest, the tastiest garlic at the end of your season. So let's get planting with me. So tip number 1 starts before you even get planting, and that's when you choose your garlic. So first things first, when you buy garlic for planting, you can either buy the whole bulb or you can get the individual cloves. And these little cloves are what make up the bulb. And here's the cool thing. One of these cloves will produce a whole bulb. So you can keep going, and if you're lucky, be saving garlic to be planting the next year, and you never have to buy again. But you want to think about what you're going to buy, because there are 2 different types of garlic you might want to think about, as well as all the different varieties. First things first then. So I said there were 2 different types. There is hardneck and softneck. And you'll often hear both spoken about on the internet. There are benefits to choosing one or the other. Firstly, determined by your garden, your weather, your temperatures. So hardneck garlic tends to be what we grow in our colder climates or colder gardens. This stuff is a little bit more hardy and it stands up a little bit better to the cold and damp atmosphere we tend to have here. Now it's called hardneck because it has a central stalk inside the bulb. It's this bit you can see coming out, and that is its hard neck. Now the thing is, because it has that, which is hollow, it doesn't store as well as soft neck garlic. Soft neck because it doesn't have this hard core. Okay. Now if you're buying your garlic to plant, then obviously you can choose between hardneck and softneck. But what if you've just got garlic and you're not sure? Well, a way you can tell is your hardneck has lots of larger cloves around the outside of that harder stem in the centre. Softneck garlic, however, just has cloves right through. So you'll have more cloves, but they'll be slightly smaller. Oh, and there's a bonus as well. Hardneck garlic, this central stem is because your hardneck will put up stalks and try to flower if you let it. Here's the bonus though. Those are called scapes, and you can cut them off once they've gone curly, and they taste fantastic. You can chop them up and put them through salads and soups, cook with them, and they're a really nice subtly garlic flavour. Some of us grow hardneck particularly for the scapes. It's like a bonus 2 harvests. Second tip then is location, and this is way more important than you might even realise. Choose the sunny spot in your garden, because your garlic shoots, when they come up out the soil in spring, they're going to be looking for that sunshine, and they want at least 6 hours of that every single day. They like a lot of sun. So think about your location before you start planting. Pick the sunny spot in your garden. Or, if you grow in containers, be ready to move them into the sunny spot once those little shoots come up. While we're talking about location then, let's talk soil. Garlic wants a really nice, rich, free-draining soil. So if you're a bit worried that your in-ground beds in your garden might be a bit clay, a bit heavy, maybe they hold too much moisture, don't worry, you can still grow garlic. Do what I do. I can use raised beds or containers, and then I can dictate the soil. So I can have this really nice, loose, loamy soil that I can plant in. Now, in terms of that soil, you want it to be incredibly rich and nutritious. Garlic is a very hungry crop. It wants lots of nutrition and a nice, even level of moisture. So think about that. What I do is I make up a big mix from my home compost bins, and that way I can make sure that I'm adding in my lovely rich compost to give my garlic everything it needs. And I can be adding in things like vermiculite or grit, whatever's needed to make sure it's really nice and free draining. If you're growing in beds in your garden, add lots of compost. You may already do this throughout the year. That'll help to amend your soil and keep it really, really rich and nutritious, and all that organic matter will just help to make it a bit more loose, a bit more free draining. I said spring when those shoots come up, so that leads us nicely to number 3, and that's timing. Timing is everything. Here in my garden, I'm in the central belt of Scotland, so we're in a colder but temperate climate. That means for me, my garlic planting is usually around mid-October to the end of October. The reason being, I want to get my garlic in the ground when it's getting colder, okay? But that soil is still relatively warm, so the garlic will put out its root system and it will settle in. But I don't want it to put out shoots yet. So I don't want it being so warm that the garlic might think it's spring and it's time to grow. Because those little shoots may get damaged in winter by the frosts and the freezes, and I don't want that. Since I'm sitting at a bed and a pot, let's talk about actually planting the garlic, because that's the exciting bit. I've been super lucky this year. I've got a friend who bought far too much garlic and they shared lots with us. Bonus for you then. When you get your bulbs like this, you want to break them up into cloves before you plant them. Put them on a flat surface and just roll it under your hand, just with a little bit of weight on it, and it'll break up nicely. You'll see your cloves all have this sort of papery skin on them. You don't have to sit and peel all that off, it's fine. You can just plant them as is. But that now lets me look at these and choose the biggest, fattest ones to plant. And I'll hold these skinny little ones back. Now, you can plant the little skinny cloves and you will get garlic from them. But my objective is to get the biggest, fattest, tastiest garlic I can. So I'm going to choose these nice big fat cloves. If I've got space later on, I might plant some of these, but I know I've got some good ones there to start with. Now, there are 3 super simple ways to get your garlic in the ground. If you're growing in beds, whether it's raised beds or in the ground, you might want to go with the very traditional way of making what we call a drill. It's basically a big line in the ground that's the right planting depth for your garlic, and we'll get onto that in a second. And you simply pop your garlic into the ground and then cover it over. The other way, if you're using containers and pots, it might be a bit easier, but you can do this in beds as well. And that's to plant each clove individually in its own little space. You can do that either by pre-digging a hole, planting your garlic and covering it over, or if you've got super loose soil like I have, because I'm using raised beds and containers, you can just press them into the ground. Don't press them into your hard in-ground beds though, because you could damage them. But first things first then, you can look at the shape of your little cloves there. You can see there's a flat bit and a pointy bit. The flat bit is the bottom, is where the roots are going to come from. Now, theoretically, you could put it on its side and it will find its way, but that is going to take extra effort, extra energy from this little guy. And it's a bit of a waste, especially if we want to get the best garlic we can. So, flat side at the bottom, pointy end up. So your little pointy bit wants to be between 1 and 3 inches deep into the soil. If you're in a colder climate like me, you're going to plant it deeper because that's going to protect it from the cold. If you're somewhere warmer, you might want to plant it a bit shallower. So I'm going for 3 inches. Super easy way for me to do that is I could measure it, but I can also say, for me, 3 inches is about a whole finger's depth up to the knuckle, and I can push it into the soil in my room. Because as I said, I've got really loose soil. So that's depth then. If I put this little guy here, I can show you. The next spacing you want to think about is between each clove. Now, garlic is a bit antisocial. It doesn't like competing with other plants nearby. It wants between 4 and 6 inches of space between it and your next clove. Now, the reason for that is, I've already said garlic is really, really hungry and likes a lot of nutrition, and it likes its fair share of the water. If you have them too close together, they're going to be competing for those nutrients. You'll get a smaller bulb at the end. But also, the more space they have to get bigger. So think about that. Again, for me, I can use the size of my hand as a rough guide for me, but you can use a ruler and measure it properly if you'd be more comfortable. And make sure your garlic is all covered over to protect it from the cold weather. Here's a last bonus one for you. If you want the biggest garlic you could possibly have, you might try elephant garlic, which is gigantuan. That's a clove of elephant garlic. That's a normal garlic clove. However, here's the bonus I was talking about. This is actually not technically a garlic. It is an allium, so it's recognisable, but technically it's in the leek family. There you go. If you're going to try elephant garlic, obviously they are much bigger. Spacing wise, a good 6 inches, possibly more. And a bit deeper again, maybe 5 inches deep. So that's my top tips for getting the biggest, best garlic ever. As always, when you plant things, give it a good water to settle it in. And if you just want a bit more fun on the whole garlic thing, watch this video next. It's not all about garlic. It's a good fun build video, but you can see last year's garlic harvest for yourself. See you folks.